Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving deep into the life of Jesus of Nazareth.
But not the one you might think you know.
Exactly.
We're going beyond those familiar stories.
Right.
To uncover some truly fascinating details.
Yeah, and we're doing it through a pretty interesting source, too.
Yes, we'll be exploring excerpts from J J Benítez's Caballo de Troya 4.
Caballo de Troya 4.
Yeah, it's a very unique blend of historical research woven into a fictional narrative.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about this source is
It offers a perspective you won't find in your typical history book.
you won't find it anywhere else, this blend of factual historical detail with personal anecdotes.
Even intimate glimpses into Jesus' life from those who knew him.
Yeah, it's almost like we're getting a first-hand account.
Exactly.
All right.
Think of it as peeling back layers of history
Yeah.
to see more human, more relatable side of Jesus.
More relatable, more human side of Jesus.
And it all starts with his childhood in Nazareth.
Okay, so picture this Nazareth, a small town in Galilee.
Not exactly the bustling metropolis we might imagine.
Right.
The book paints a vivid picture of the socioeconomic conditions of the time.
And it wasn't exactly luxurious, was it?
Not at all. But even within those humble surroundings, young Jesus was drawn to different paths.
Okay.
On the one hand, he was fascinated by carpentry, learning the trade from his father Joseph.
So practical skills.
But on the other hand, he felt this pull towards nature, a longing for the open water and the freedom of a fisherman's life.
Oh, so there's this internal conflict already brewing,
Yeah.
but then duty calls.
Yes. When his father died, young Jesus had to step up and become the provider for his family.
Wow.
That responsibility at such a young age must have been incredibly challenging.
It makes you wonder, how did this experience shape his later teachings about family and responsibility?
That's a great question, and the book offers a compelling answer.
Okay.
It recounts a story about Jesus traveling to the grand city of Scythopolis.
Oh, wow.
He was captivated by its grandeur,
Yeah.
which starkly contrasted with life back in Nazareth.
Okay. But what's interesting is his father's reaction, disapproval.
Oh, so even as a teenager, he's already pushing against expectations, exploring the wider world, and maybe even sparking a little tension with his dad.
It's a dynamic we see play out throughout his life.
Really?
This tension between his own desires and the expectations placed upon him. It's almost as if he was always meant to challenge the status quo.
Always meant to challenge the status quo. Interesting. And then there's this other really interesting anecdote about the birth of his brother Judas.
And his mother, Mary, falling ill.
Yeah.
It reveals Jesus' incredible dedication to family. He steps up, taking care of his mother and newborn brother, demonstrating a maturity beyond his years.
Yeah, it's in these moments of crisis.
These moments of responsibility that we see glimpses of the leader he would become.
Speaking of leadership, let's shift gears to Jesus the carpenter.
Okay.
Now, we might think of carpentry as kind of a simple trade, but the book highlights Jesus' exceptional skill and unique approach to his craft. It was more than just a job to him. It was an expression of his creativity and his connection to the natural world.
His connection to the natural world. I like that.
The book describes him working with different types of wood
Yeah.
and drawing parallels between their qualities and human nature.
Give me an example.
For example, he saw the hardness of oak, reflecting the resilience of some individuals,
Okay.
while the golden hues of walnut symbolize the inner beauty of others.
It's like he saw people's essence through their connection to nature.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
It speaks to a level of empathy and understanding that is remarkable, especially for someone so young.
Especially for someone so young, right? But his carpentry skills weren't just about artistry. They were also about providing for his family.
Yes, in a poignant act of selflessness, he even sold his beloved harp to pay for his brother's education.
Wow. Selling something so personally meaningful, it's a big sacrifice.
It certainly does.
It really makes you consider the depth of his commitment to his family.
It also speaks to his willingness to let go of material possessions for the well-being of others, a theme that becomes central to his later teachings.
Right, and eventually economic necessity kind of forced him to move to, say, Forest, a nearby city with more opportunities.
But the book hints that this move was more than just about money.
Okay.
There's this suggestion of a deeper inner transformation happening within him during this time, as if he was being drawn towards something larger than himself, a sense of destiny that was pulling him forward.
That's where we enter the period often referred to as the hidden years,
Yes.
the time between his carpentry years and the beginning of his public ministry.
What's fascinating is that the Gospels are relatively silent on this period.
Right.
But Caballo de Troya 4 offers a unique perspective.
What does it say?
It suggests these years were a time of profound inner growth and preparation for his future mission. His mother Mary even observed this transformation firsthand, noting his increased spirituality and growing awareness of his destiny.
It's as if he were gathering strength, clarifying his purpose, preparing himself for the challenges that lay ahead. It's something we can all relate to, right? Those times in our lives where we sense a shift, a calling to something greater.
Absolutely. And for Jesus, this calling was unfolding against the backdrop of a turbulent social and political landscape.
Yeah, okay.
Galilee during his time was a region simmering with unrest.
Okay.
The Zealot movement was gaining momentum, fueled by resentment towards Roman rule and the economic hardships imposed by Roman taxation.
So imagine the atmosphere, tension, fear, a sense of impending change. It's within this volatile environment that Jesus and his followers would eventually navigate their own mission.
Exactly. And the book doesn't shy away from the conflicts Jesus faced even before his public ministry began.
Such as?
There's the chilling incident with the poisonous aconite, a deadly plant.
Wow.
His family's livestock are poisoned.
Oh, no.
And it's implied that this was a deliberate act of sabotage.
Really?
It reveals the dangers lurking beneath the surface of everyday life, the very real risks that Jesus and his followers faced.
It highlights the level of animosity that some people harbor towards Jesus and his family. But even amidst these threats, he continued to live and work in Nazareth, demonstrating a remarkable resilience and courage.
It makes you wonder, did these early experiences of conflict and danger shape his later teachings about forgiveness and nonviolence?
It's a great question. It leads us to another intriguing encounter described in the book.
Yes, a tense scene at Hecat's Inn,
Oh, right.
where Jesus defends his friends against prejudice. It's a powerful moment that foreshadows his unwavering commitment to justice and his willingness to challenge authority.
So even as a young man, he's already standing up for what he believes and demonstrating a moral compass that would guide his life and his teachings.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember that these acts of courage weren't happening in a vacuum.
Okay.
He was surrounded by a community of people who both shaped and were shaped by his presence.
And speaking of those who shaped his life, let's talk about the women who played significant roles. His mother Mary, his sister Miriam, and his sister-in-law Rebecca. What's striking is their strength and individuality.
Yes, they're not just passive figures in the background.
Yeah.
Mary, for instance, emerges as a woman of deep faith.
Yes.
Yet she's also capable of questioning her son's choices.
Oh, so she's not just a yes woman.
It portrays a much more nuanced and realistic mother-son dynamic.
Yeah, one that many of us can probably relate to. I can definitely see that. And then there's Miriam, who embodies a progressive spirit.
She yearns for greater opportunities for women, reflecting the evolving social ideas of the time.
So she's kind of ahead of her time.
Her relationship with Jesus seems to have been one of intellectual sparring.
Really?
She challenged him, pushed him to think differently, and broadened his perspective.
Wow, it's almost as if she was preparing him for the debates he would later have with the religious leaders of his day. It's fascinating to see how these relationships, these interactions with strong and independent women, may have influenced his views on equality and compassion.
Indeed. And then we have other characters like Jacob the Mason and Ruth the Servant. Though their stories are brief, they offer glimpses into the lives of ordinary people in Nazareth, enriching the tapestry of Jesus' world.
Yeah, they remind us that he wasn't living in isolation, but was deeply embedded in a community, interacting with people from all walks of life.
Exactly. And that community was alive with its own customs and routines. The book describes the bustling marketplace, the lively discussions in the synagogue, the importance of shared meals.
It helps us imagine Jesus moving through these spaces, engaging with the people around him, experiencing life in all its richness and complexity.
It's like we're getting a behind-the-scenes look at his world.
Yeah.
The everyday details that shaped his worldview and informed his teaching.
Exactly, and those details extend to the economic realities of the time.
Yes. We learn about the types of crops grown, the challenges of Roman taxation, the bartering system that was common in those days.
It paints a picture of a community striving to survive and maintain its traditions amidst the pressures of Roman rule.
It makes you realize that Jesus wasn't just some abstract figure preaching from a pedestal.
Right.
He was living through these hardships alongside his community, experiencing the very real struggles of poverty and injustice.
Absolutely, and that shared experience, that deep connection to his people, is something that comes through strongly in this book. It's a side of Jesus that we don't always get to see. And speaking of seeing a different side of Jesus, The book doesn't shy away from the cultural influences that shaped his worldview.
Right, we see the popularity of Greek philosophy,
Okay.
the influence of Roman law, and the enduring traditions of Jewish religious practice.
So a blend of different influences.
It reminds us that he didn't exist in a cultural vacuum.
Right.
He was exposed to a rich tapestry of ideas and beliefs.
Yeah.
And that exposure undoubtedly influenced his thinking.
It makes you wonder, how did those influences shape his interpretations of Scripture and his understanding of God? It's like we're seeing the seeds of his revolutionary ideas being planted.
It's a fascinating puzzle to consider.
It is.
And as we delve deeper into Caballo de Troya 4, we'll continue to uncover more pieces, more insights into the formative experiences that shaped the man who would become known as the Son of God.
Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the extraordinary journey of Jesus of Nazareth.
It's fascinating to consider how all these experiences, these glimpses into Jesus' early life, might have shaped his later ministry.
It really is.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah.
Each detail revealing a bit more about the man he would become.
And some of these pieces are pretty unexpected.
Like what?
For instance, the book suggests that Jesus may have had a dog named Zal.
Now that's an intriguing detail.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Okay.
Dogs weren't typically held in high regard in Jewish society at the time. In fact, they were often considered unclean.
So if Jesus did have a dog, it raises some interesting questions.
Yeah.
Was he intentionally breaking social norms?
Possibly.
Was this a sign of his compassion for all creatures,
Could be.
even those considered lowly or outcasts?
It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
And it aligns with what we've already seen.
Right.
His willingness to challenge expectations and embrace those on the margins of society.
But let's not forget the economic realities of the time.
Right, we're talking about a time and place where poverty was widespread.
Yeah.
And Jesus and his family were not immune to those hardships.
Right. They faced the burden of Roman taxation.
And often had to make difficult choices just to survive.
And these hardships weren't merely abstract concepts for them.
No, the book recounts how Jesus had to sell his beloved harp
A cherished possession.
to pay for his brother's education
Wow.
and avoid an impending embargo.
It's a reminder that even someone who would later be revered as the Son of God experienced the very real anxieties of financial insecurity.
Absolutely.
It humanizes him, wouldn't you say?
It brings him down to earth, so to speak, and allows us to connect with his story on a more personal level.
More personal level, right? But even as he faced these challenges, he continued to work and grow.
He did.
And that leads us to his late teens.
Okay.
The book describes him working alongside his brother James at a caravan supply store, a bustling hub of activity in Nazareth.
I can imagine.
Can you imagine the sights and sounds the people from all walks of life passing through?
It must have been a fascinating experience. A crash course in human nature and the dynamics of commerce.
And remember the growing zealot movement we discussed earlier?
Oh yes, the tensions were rising.
Yeah, between those who wanted to overthrow Roman rule and those who favored a more peaceful approach.
Exactly. And the book describes a tense encounter at an inn owned by Hecate,
Okay.
a man known for his anti-zealot views. When Jesus' friends are suspected of having zealot sympathies, he steps in to defend them,
Oh, wow.
showcasing his courage and sense of justice.
It's a moment that really highlights his willingness to stand up for what he believes in,
Even when it puts him at risk.
even when it puts him at risk, and the risks were very real. Remember the incident with the family's livestock being poisoned?
A chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life.
Absolutely. And yet, despite those dangers, Jesus continued to live and work in Nazareth,
And the book emphasizes his skill as a carpenter.
even suggesting that he saw it as more than just a trade.
Right. It was a way of expressing his creativity, his connection to the natural world.
And the way the book describes his understanding of wood is remarkable.
Tell me about it.
Okay.
He seemed to see a connection between the different types of wood and human nature.
Okay.
The hardness of oak reflecting the resilience of some individuals, the golden hues of walnut symbolizing the inner beauty of others.
It's such a beautiful metaphor, seeing the essence of people reflected in the natural world.
And it speaks to his deep level of empathy and insight.
But even within his family, there were complexities and conflicts. The book delves into a disagreement that arose when Jesus decided to sell his harp to pay for his brother Judas's education.
That was a tough one.
What was the source of the tension there?
Well, while Jesus' intentions were noble, his brother James saw it as an unnecessary sacrifice. It highlights the different personalities within the family, doesn't it?
Yeah.
James the pragmatist focused on practical matters, and Jesus guided by a deeper sense of purpose and willing to make personal sacrifices for the greater good.
It's interesting how these early dynamics within his family might foreshadow the challenges he would later face in his ministry, navigating different viewpoints and balancing personal needs with a larger mission.
It's a great observation.
Yeah.
And as he navigated these family dynamics, there was also a growing awareness of his destiny unfolding within him. The book mentions that his mother, Mary, noticed a change in him,
What kind of change?
a deepening spirituality and a preoccupation with something beyond the ordinary.
It's as if he was sensing a call to something greater, but wasn't quite sure what it was or how to answer it.
Exactly. And this internal struggle played out against the backdrop of the intensifying political climate.
Right.
Remember the conversation he had with his brother James about the concept of God's kingdom?
Oh, yes, that was fascinating.
James, influenced by the Zealot movement, envisioned God's kingdom as a political triumph over Rome.
A restoration of Israel's power.
But Jesus challenged that notion, suggesting that God's kingdom wasn't about earthly power or military might.
So what was it about?
Instead, he pointed to the beauty of a rose, the intricate geometry of the stars, suggesting that God's kingdom was a realm of beauty both visible and invisible.
It's such a radical departure from the prevailing political narrative. It's almost like he's offering a different kind of revolution, one focused on inner transformation and a recognition of the divine in all of creation.
Precisely, and this difference in perspective created tension between him and his mother Mary.
Right, she had always believed he was destined for greatness.
But she envisioned him as a political leader, a liberator of Israel.
Like many mothers.
And when Jesus resisted that path, choosing instead a path of peace and compassion, it created conflict.
Classic mother-son dynamic, right? The clash between a mother's expectations and a son's desire to forge his own path.
A struggle many of us can relate to, I'm sure.
Amidst this tension, the search for his own path, Jesus makes a pivotal decision.
What's that?
He decides to leave Nazareth and move to the nearby city of Sepphoris.
Now, on the surface, this move seems motivated by economic necessity.
Right, Sepphoris offered better opportunities for a skilled carpenter.
But the book hints at something deeper.
Like what?
It suggests that this move was a deliberate step towards fulfilling his destiny, a way of separating himself from the familiar comforts of home and stepping into a wider world.
Stepping into a wider world that's a significant turning point, a time of transition and preparation for the ministry that lay ahead.
While in Sepphoris, the book describes him spending time alone in prayer and meditation, seeking guidance and deepening his connection to God.
So it wasn't just about external events or social activism. It was also about an inner journey, a spiritual evolution. It's a reminder that even those destined for greatness need those moments of quiet reflection and connection to a higher purpose.
Absolutely. And the book even mentions a specific prayer that Jesus used during this time.
Oh, really?
It reflects his evolving understanding of God and his own place in the divine plan. Would you like to hear it?
I would love to.
Here it is. Father, may your kingdom come in, and may your will be done, even if we don't understand it. Give us the bread of patience and rest. Give us the bread of joy in small moments. Give us the bread of promises. Give us the bread of courage and justice, and the fire and salt of companionship, and also the cleansing tears. Give us, Father, the faceless face of your image, and forgive us our debts. Excuse our mistakes as a father forgets the clumsiness of his son. Forgive the darkness of our selfishness. Forgive the open wounds. Forgive the silences and the thunder of slander. Forgive our heavy burden of distrust. Forgive this world that through loneliness is becoming alone. Forgive our past and our future, and lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from blindness of heart. Do not let us fall into the temptation of wealth, nor into misery and narrowness of spirit. Deliver us, Father, from all material certainty and security. Deliver us.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
It speaks to his deep humility, his willingness to surrender to a higher power, and his recognition of human weakness.
He also reveals his compassion for humanity and his yearning for a world free from suffering and injustice.
And as we explore his life further, we'll see how this prayer, this deep connection to the divine, shaped his actions and message.
We will.
Now, even though his move to Sepphoris provided new opportunities, it wasn't without its challenges.
You're absolutely right.
He faced competition from other carpenters.
The complexities of Roman bureaucracy and the social dynamics of a new city.
And the book doesn't shy away from the temptations he faced. It mentions encounters with those who tried to exploit his skills for their own gain.
Tempting him with wealth and power,
But Jesus resisted those temptations.
remaining true to his values and his growing sense of purpose.
It's a testament to his integrity and his commitment to something greater than himself. It's easy to get caught up in the external events of his life, the conflicts and challenges, but what I find truly inspiring is this unwavering inner compass, this steadfast dedication to his calling.
Yes, and it's this inner strength that will guide him through the next chapter of his life. As we delve deeper into his time in Sepphoris, we'll uncover even more details about his relationships, his work, and the events that shaped his destiny.
Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the extraordinary journey of Jesus of Nazareth. It's amazing to see how even in a new city with new opportunities, certain patterns in Jesus' life continue to emerge.
Yes, it seems no matter where he went, conflict wasn't far behind.
Really?
Caballo de Troya 4 recounts a scene in a local tavern
Okay.
where Jesus steps in to protect his friends from harassment.
Oh, interesting.
It's reminiscent of his confrontation with Hecate,
Right.
the anti-zealot innkeeper back in Nazareth.
This recurring theme of defending the vulnerable, of standing up against injustice, is fascinating. It really seems to be a defining characteristic, almost foreshadowing the conflicts he'll have with the religious and political authorities later in his life.
It certainly does, and this tavern scene is especially interesting
Why?
because it gives us a glimpse into the diverse social landscape of Sepphoris.
Okay.
We see Greeks, Phoenicians, Roman officials, merchants, even prostitutes.
Wow, such a mix.
It's a reminder that Jesus lived in a world where cultures and social norms were constantly colliding.
It makes you wonder how those interactions with people from such diverse backgrounds might have shaped his views on inclusivity and compassion.
Absolutely. But the book doesn't just focus on external conflicts.
Okay.
It also delves into Jesus' personal life during this time in Sepphoris, revealing a detail often omitted from traditional accounts:
What's that?
his relationship with a young woman named Esther.
Now, this is something I wasn't expecting. Tell me more about this relationship.
The book describes it as a passionate and intense love affair, but one that ultimately ended in heartbreak.
Oh, wow.
It's a reminder that even someone destined for greatness experiences the full spectrum of human emotions.
Including the pain of lost love.
Exactly.
It makes his story feel so much more relatable, so much more human. It's a reminder that we all go through those periods of heartache and disappointment, regardless of our path in life.
And what's remarkable is how even in the face of heartbreak, Jesus' spiritual journey continued to deepen.
Really?
The book describes him finding solace in prayer and meditation, drawing strength from his connection to God.
So even amidst personal turmoil, his commitment to his spiritual path remains steadfast. It's a testament to his resilience and his unwavering faith.
It certainly is. And it's during this time that his bond with his brother James also deepens.
Oh, how so?
The book describes them having long conversations, sharing their thoughts and struggles, supporting each other through difficult times.
A true brotherly bond.
It's a reminder of the importance of family, even when there are disagreements or conflicts.
That brotherly bond, that sense of shared experience must have been a source of strength for both of them.
Yes, but as Jesus' time in Sepphoris drew to a close, he faced a crucial decision.
What to do next?
He found himself at a crossroads, aware of his unique calling, but unsure of the specific path he should take. It's a moment many of us can relate to, that feeling of uncertainty and seeking guidance as we navigate major life decisions.
Absolutely. And his mother, Mary, still held on to her vision of him as a political leader, a liberator of Israel. It's understandable, right? A mother wanting the best for her son, envisioning him fulfilling a grand destiny.
Of course. But Jesus remained hesitant to embrace that path.
Mm.
His vision of God's kingdom was not about earthly power or political revolution. He seemed to be searching for something more profound, something that transcended the limitations of worldly ambitions.
And it was during this time of discernment, this wrestling with his future, that a remarkable event occurred.
What happened?
Jesus received a letter from his brother Judas, who was studying in Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
This letter, according to the book, contained a challenge, a call to action that would have a profound impact on Jesus' decision.
I see.
Tell me more about this letter. What did it say?
Judas, inspired by the teachings of a renowned rabbi, urged Jesus to embrace his destiny as a spiritual leader. He challenged him to move beyond the confines of Nazareth and Sepphoris to share his message with a wider audience.
So it wasn't a directive,
Not really.
but an invitation to step into his full potential, to embrace his calling on a larger scale.
Exactly, and the book suggests that this letter served as a catalyst for Jesus. It gave him the clarity and courage he needed to finally step into his destiny.
It's fascinating how seemingly small events, a letter, a conversation, can have such a ripple effect on our lives, leading us down paths we may never have imagined.
It's a powerful reminder that our lives are shaped by a complex interplay of choices, circumstances, and even chance encounters.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Jesus's formative years, what key insights can we take away?
Well, Caballo de Troya 4 paints a portrait of a man who faced real challenges, experienced the full spectrum of human emotions, and navigated a complex and often dangerous world.
It's a far cry from the often idealized image we see in traditional accounts.
It challenges us to reconsider our preconceived notions and see Jesus not just as a divine figure, but as a man who walked among us, who struggled, loved, and ultimately sacrificed himself for the betterment of humanity.
And while this book offers a wealth of detail about his life, it also acknowledges that much of his inner life remains a mystery.
Perhaps that's part of the enduring power of his story.
What do you mean?
It leaves space for personal interpretation and invites us to continue our own deep dive into his teachings and his legacy.
It's a journey worth taking for anyone seeking a deeper understanding of history, spirituality, and the human condition.
Absolutely. And as we explore the vast tapestry of human history, may we always remain open to new perspectives, willing to challenge our assumptions, and eager to learn from the lives of those who came before us.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life of Jesus of Nazareth. We hope you continue to explore the fascinating world of history with us. Until next time.